On today's show, the San Diego Padres get the return of Michael King spoiled as Robert Suarez blows it in the ninth inning. Should he remain the closer for this team going forward? All that and more. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, September 10th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for almost 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but also various other outlets, including JustBaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Feel free to check me out on YouTube. Send any of your comments under this video to have them potentially answered on future episodes. Love hearing back from you guys. Today's episode, guys, we are talking about last night's game, doing a little bit of the old recap, you know what I'm saying, and talking about the biggest stories, Michael King's return and Robert Suarez blowing the safe. And then also, other stuff. A little bit of a fan question. I hate saying fan by accident. Listener, viewer question we've got at the end about the CBA, which I feel like is worth at least bringing up a little bit. Because, we're gonna be in the 2026 season before we know it. You know what I mean? We're almost done, guys. It's kind of crazy. But let's first start with the recap. The Padres lose this game by a score of 4-2. The big story heading into this one, of course, is Michael King making his return. 5 innings in this one, giving up 2 earned runs on 3 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. He does give up 2 home runs, 2 big home runs, one from Sal Stewart in the top of the first inning, the second from Will Benson, and if not for Fernando Tatis Jr. again robbing a home run. He's making a little bit of a habit of this, habit of this lately. You know what I mean? Not lately, the whole season. He's been one of the best defenders in all of Major League Baseball this year. He's probably going to win a Gold Glove. I believe he's probably been the best defensive right fielder that I could think of. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but it's stuff like that again re-emphasizes the point, which is that Tatis is a truly amazing all-around player this year, even if his batting has sometimes lacked, especially in the slugging department with only 20 home runs this year. Although I will say he's probably going to at least hit more than he hit in 2024, where he hit 21, so that's kind of nice, although that was in 102 games. But still, nonetheless, great moment for Tatis. Again, may I remind everybody, this year, when it comes to defensive runs saved and outs above average, this man has been elite. 17 defensive runs saved this year and 8 outs above average. That's Gold Glove stuff. Almost as good as his season in which he won the Platinum Glove, by the way. So great stuff from Tatis. But I bring that up also to note that Michael King, while he only gave up 2 earned runs on 2 home runs, it is worth bringing up that Tatis does get a rob of another one, and maybe it ends up being a 4-run sort of outing. But what I like the most is he went a decent amount of innings. 5, which is not only just important for this Padres team, which we talked about a lot lately. They need to get more innings out of their starters, but also because his last start that he had, Michael King, he only went 2 innings, and that was after coming off the IL for a long time. So hopefully, and I think this shows you that, yes, the second stint really was like a second injury that was separate from what the other thing was. I know that that's what was reported, but I know that some listeners and fans of the team and followers just don't trust the Padres with injuries. So I just think that him going 5 innings is a nice step in the right direction. Still rocking at 2.87 on the year. I thought he looked okay, but he was making some mistakes with some of his pitches, as evident by nearly 3 home runs happening in this one. But hey, gotta love Tatis and gotta love him. Just hoping that he gets a lot of reps. Michael King, hoping that this is the first of many and that he's going to get some momentum heading into the playoffs as probably their game 1 starter potentially when it's all said and done. So hopefully, or maybe game 2 starter, because Nick Pivetta has been the guy all year. So we'll have to see how that goes, but love that from our guy King. The Reds weren't the only ones robbed though. There was actually a robbery from Jose Iglesias in which our outfield pal on the Reds, playing right field, Will Benson makes a jumping catch but ends up hurting himself. So, thoughts out to him. That looked really, really rough. I haven't heard any update on him, but it looks like he kind of hit the back of his head and his shoulder. He was grabbing at that, but hey, incredible catch by my guy there. Incredible, genuinely incredible catch in ways better than the Tatis catch. And he does rob Jose Iglesias, who, does get a stolen base in this game. It is like his one, or does he get a stolen base? Yes, he gets a stolen base in this game. He's playing shortstop on tonight's game, obviously with Xander Bogaerts out. So that was something that happened. What else did we get? I noticed yesterday two cool things. Number one, that Ryan O'Hearn was batting second. So I'm starting to think that it's possible, especially as of lately, that the Mike Schill and management are starting to rethink this batting order, which is something that I've been hoping for a while, right? And I think that while Ryan O'Hearn, there is going to be some questions, I'm not saying that he's going to slot in at number 2 and immediately be great. But what I do think is it at least gives this lineup just more upside. He goes 1 for 4 in this game. Arises on the bench in this one. I just like a guy who can hit for a decent average and walk, right? This is what I've been saying all year, or ever since they got him, right? He has a 264 or 276 batting average on the year. Like, that's only like what is that? 4 points less than Luis Ariz, 7 points less than Luis Ariz, more or less. And he has the walk rate. So hopefully listeners and viewers of this podcast that's good. He has multiple ways to get on base, and on top of that, the power. So I love that he was batting second, then Manny Machado fourth, Manny Machado third, then Gavin Sheets fourth, Laureano fifth. They moved him up in the lineup. Jackson Merrill with a big game as well. That's worth talking about. But also Ryan O'Hearn, Manny Machado, 0 for 4 in this game. He does have a stolen base, which is nice, but it's worth talking about. He really has been slumping for a while, and I think that there are some people who are wondering, is this guy, is he injured, right? Like, is he injured? Because he's been really, really poor for a long time in the OPS department, right? He had a couple home runs recently, but other than that, he really hasn't looked the same at the end of the season so far. And another thing with Manny Machado, had a couple throws that I don't think were very good that were hidden by the fact that Ryan O'Hearn was playing first base. I just want to point that out because with Ryan O'Hearn's length and all that stuff, which we talked about on yesterday's show, 2 shows. Again, apologies, by the way, guys. I don't know what keeps happening with uploading. The episode not uploading when I said for it to. That was really annoying. Shout out YouTube. So won't happen again, I promise. But one of the things we talked about in yesterday's show is just that Ariz is not a good first baseman, despite one of the comments on this channel saying that he's a Gold Glove caliber first baseman, which is totally unsubstantiated by literally anybody who watches baseball. He just doesn't have the length for it. And Ryan O'Hearn, I am wondering a little bit, like, if those 2 throws by Manny Machado, if Luis Ariz is there, are they errors? Are they balls that get away from him? So that would be more on Manny, don't get me wrong, but it's also just nice to have Ryan O'Hearn, who ranks in the top 5 of outs above average at first base this year, so he is a very good defender. But that's not it, guys. We got to talk about our man, Robert Suarez. Got to talk about him, because man, oh man, I know people are upset. I know they are. I know how you guys are. You're blaming Mike Schill. You're saying, bring in the new closer. Well, the question, I think, is, should they? And I think it's more complicated than that. But first, let me talk to you guys really quickly about one of our sponsors. That is our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, jumping in live, whatever you want to do. You want to do the NRFI, no run first inning, you can do that too. All cool, quick, easy. It's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. But that's not all. I want to talk about another one of our sponsors, and it's a new one. You know I love a new sponsor. And you've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, yeah, that looks like it actually works. Why not? There's so many products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually knows which ones actually work. You just watch this and say, okay, sure. Is that going to be okay? I don't know. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. And you could just feel good about knowing that Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by peer-reviewed studies. That's great. So you're not going to have to just watch a commercial and guess and hope it works. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, Nutrafol. fanduel.com, promo code LOCKEDON MLB. Go, go check that thing out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, second segment of this whole show, thriving and vibing as always. Remember to go check out the YouTube, leave a question in the comments, and I will get back to you guys. And even if it's not a question, just your comment, you might even get read too. Nobody is safe on the Locked On Padres podcast, guys. Really quickly before we talk about Robert Suarez, just want to give a shout out to Jackson Merrill, who has had a 3-game stretch. Right? Nothing to freak out about. I can't say that Jackson Merrill's back, but 2 for 4 in this game with an RBI, a double and a triple in this one. And unlike the game before, in game 1, this one didn't require a drop by the potential Reds center fielder. So great stuff from Jackson Merrill. He's batting 6th in the lineup. They really need him, man. They really need him. And we're going to have to do a show on him at some point because he has not been very good this year. But he's not the main thing we got to talk about, right? The Padres once again had a comeback from behind thing, but then they didn't score for the rest of the game, right? Bottom 5. So that makes it easy to blame Robert Suarez, who does get the loss in this one, giving up a game-winning home run, what ends up being a game-winning home run to Tyler Stevenson, 2-run shot. It stinks. He got 2 outs, right? Robert Suarez, he had worked through 2 guys, but unable to, limit the damage. And I know that there's going to be some people thinking, like, should there be a new closer for this team? Well, I think that is an ill-advised thought. And here's what I think about that. I really do think that this is a classic case of people just love hating on managers. Robert Suarez went 1 2/3 just the other day. So maybe this was just the classic case. What have I been telling you guys? That the starting pitching, because they've had to use their relievers so much, maybe Suarez on a little bit more rest. Maybe if he didn't have to go as many outs. I know he didn't throw too many pitches, but still, maybe the game ends up a little bit differently. But unfortunately, the Padres just haven't gotten consistent starts for so long. So I do think that it starts to wear on the bullpen a little bit. And in the case of Robert Suarez, I just don't want to hate on a guy who still has just 3.16 ERA on the season. And by the way, after that scare, I had been talking about how scared I was about him heading into the season. And he had a scare at one point this season. He was giving up crazy runs. Remember the Angels game? I don't know if you guys remember the Angels start when he gave up like 5 and he walked 5 in a row, whatever it was. It was a disaster. His ERA by month. In April, 0.75. Then May, this is when it got scary, 4.35. And then June, 7.84. But then what happened? 1.8 in July and 1.54 in August. It is so easy to hate on this guy when things aren't going right. And for me, I think for the most part, it's been going right. I don't think he's some reliever of the future, though. I think this is a guy that we'll look back on fondly as a dude who was a solid closer, a solid reliever for 3 years with this team. Because he is 34, I don't think he's going to be able to keep up with it. His expected stats are not as good, and he gets it really hard. But I don't want to hate on Schilt. I don't even want to hate on Suarez. Hey, maybe the Padres offense shouldn't just score 2 runs against this Reds team. And guys like Zach Maxwell, Connor Phillips, and Emilio Pagan. Remember how bad Emilio Pagan was with the Padres? Well, he's been really good for the Reds this year. 3.26 ERA. He's got a bunch of saves for them. He's actually been pretty solid. And he shuts down the Padres offense. So again, I don't want to hate, but I would more look at this as Padres lineup has to do better. They have not done very well in this series. And one of the games featured a starting pitcher that wasn't very good, right? So that's my thing. Give it a little bit more time. I think Robert Suarez, I do not believe he will be the closer necessarily forever in the future because they did get Mason Miller. They also have Jeremiah Estrada, who I think is excellent, right, out of this Padres bullpen. I think he could be the future closer of this team potentially, because I think Mason Miller could end up being a starting pitcher next season. That's something to look out for. And then even if you don't have him, you've still got who else do they have on this team? They've got other relievers. You still have Adrian Morejon as well on this team. And if you're talking about Javi, Mason Miller, he had an immaculate inning over the weekend, right? He struck out 3 last night. He should be the guy. Well, I think that's this thing that you have to look at going forward. You don't want to make a change in a closer role like this. It doesn't almost make sense in theory, right? It doesn't even make sense. The idea that these guys all of a sudden can fall apart, right, as soon as you take them out of their role just because they happen to be pitching 1 inning early instead of at the very end. But it is true. And in the case of Robert Suarez this year, in non-save situations, he's rocking a 3.68 ERA as opposed to save situations is a 2.5, right? And it's not like he's only been in 1 inning of non-save situations. 22 innings, 3.68 ERA, which is also not horrible. It's not horrible. It's not great, but not horrible. And to me, that tells you he's been in this role all year. He was in his role all of last year. Give him a second. I do think that if you start the season differently next year, yes, Mason Miller, I think it's worth looking at him as a closer. Although, like I said, I don't know if he will be the closer. I think they're going to try him out as a starting pitcher. So, again, it's so easy to hate on relievers when it doesn't go right and ignore when you take everything else for granted. He pitched 1 2/3 and probably won them the game on Monday. So if they score a few more runs and instead they're like, cool, we could just use Wandy Peralta for 2 innings here, then they don't even have to use him. They give him some rest, and he will not be available probably in the final game of this series, which is unfortunate because they've got Nick Pivetta versus Andrew Abbott, and Andrew Abbott has had a really good season. Just like Nick Pivetta, he's got a 2.88 ERA versus Nick Pivetta's 2.85. So potentially a pitcher's duel. You're going to want, all of your relievers available, but they aren't. And again, this is what happens when starting pitching. Isn't as consistent, and especially the offense isn't as consistent either, right? Just not driving in runs, not getting on base at a better clip. I'm hoping that they can do that. Luis Suarez also strikes out in this game, worth mentioning. Gets brought in to pinch hit. It's just always funny when he strikes out because it's just so rare to see that. It's just like, wow, that's possible? It's possible to strike this guy out? That's crazy. But only person who reached base twice was our guy, Jackson Merrill, last night. So, again, not blaming Robert Suarez whatsoever for this one. This is just one of those games that you chalk it up to you're due. Right? Guys are due, and it's fine. If he were to blow another game after getting a day off, maybe in this Rockies series upcoming, especially since it isn't going to be in Coors, then maybe we can have a conversation. But otherwise, nah, man, I gave you guys the numbers. He's used to this role. You don't want to mess with that. He has been good. Now, I will say, in the playoffs, in bigger games, maybe it might behoove Schilt to say, you know what? We've got Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and Will Smith up. Let's use Mason Miller then or now, whatever it is, right? Maybe you want to use Robert Suarez in the 8th only because he's been better, or you might be facing the bottom of a team's order, right? Maybe, but I will not hate if he elects to go, you know what? I don't want to remove my guy from the role. This stuff matters. Let's not just find ways to hate Mike Schilt. The only thing with Mike Schilt that I disagree with right now is the way that he batted Luis Suarez second for so long, and that might even be changing. So let's leave him alone. Robert Suarez is still a good boy. We like him very much. That sounded patronizing. He's still a good lad. I love him very much. And hopefully he can bounce back from this. But again, 1 2/3 the night before, guys. It's give him a second. It stinks, right? It does. But you gotta score more. At least that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. What do I know? I just host the podcast. But we're not done yet, guys. I want to talk a little bit about the CBA, among other things, because why not? Why not? I just want to. Just sounds fun. Because it's not going to be fun when it gets here, but it is going to be fun to talk about for a couple of very distinct reasons. The first of those reasons you're going to have to wait on because I have to talk to you guys about our friends over at Game Time, one of my favorite apps in the world, baby. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team achieve glory in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the old Game Time guarantee, the double G. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best prices. Plus, all fees are included. So you're not going to see some surprise, oh my God, shipping in hand, not shipping in this case, but like, all these crazy fees and convenience fees and taxes and all these things that balloon your price a whole bunch. Don't worry. You know what I mean? They're great. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets before. And I love their zone deals option. You pick a zone of the stadium, a section. They pick the seat for you. You get a discount. It's great. I love it. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. Download Game Time today. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing as I finish drinking my water. Remember, everybody, go check me out, Locked On Padres on YouTube. Leave a comment in the episode description. Well, no, leave a comment in the comments section, not episode description. You guys can't do that. In the comments section, I posted 2 episodes yesterday. I just want to apologize one more time that I set my episode for Monday from the weekend for some reason to go live September 9th instead of September 8th. I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, I apologize. You get double episodes yesterday, I guess, and it was a little bit out of order, but it won't happen again. Again, my sincerest apologies for messing up the schedule. I know it's confusing. I know it's frustrating. And I got nothing. And maybe you guys made fun of me in the comments on that. I will be checking and reading those, as well as this one, for tomorrow's show. So remember, leave those questions before we get to it, because Friday's going to be Fun Friday. I'm going to have a guest on the show. So I don't want to hear nothing from you guys. All right? Jeez. I'm kidding, of course. But I want to talk about one of the questions that I have a mailbag folder on my computer, and it's a really old one that I got a while back. So there's a good chance that my guy who asked this question might not even be listening to the show anymore, might not be following on YouTube anymore. If that's the case, I'm sorry, but at Anime Gamer, which is like hilarious in a bunch of different ways, just talking 2027 CBA, which was not discussed but came up lightly at the end. And this episode is like a month and a half ago, guys. If MLB owners want a salary cap, fine. Hard cap is $300 million, going up 1% annually until the next CBA. Oh yeah, hard floor is $250 million, going up the same amount as the cap. No more cheap teams like the A's and Marlins sucking away money from luxury teams. Cheap, small market teams can't complain about not being competitive because of money if they aren't spending it. And if you're like the Twins with owners who are dead broke, perhaps you shouldn't be involved in professional baseball anymore. I mean, you nailed it, man. And I think that this is going to be a big deal. First of all, I agree with what you're saying. I think the idea of a salary cap is very much like people are really drinking the owner Gatorade, right? Like, you're really just eating what they're selling. What's the phrase? You're drinking the Kool-Aid. There we go. You're drinking the Kool-Aid of what the owners want you to believe. They want you to believe that they can't compete and whatnot, and all these sort of things. So you got to have a salary cap to stop the Dodgers. And there's actually been some theories, I think, around the league, conspiracy theories more like, that one of the reasons that you saw the Dodgers just unleash over the last 2 years, right, with the Yamamoto, Ohtani offseason with Teoscar Hernandez and Tyler Glasnow, right? And then this offseason they get Roki Sasaki, they bring back Teoscar Hernandez, right? Like, some people are thinking, well, this is because they want the Dodgers to get everything, so then the other owners, the cheap owners, can complain come CBA negotiations next year over this stuff, and then say this is why we need a salary cap. And it's just not what you need, right? You need a salary floor. I do believe that. I think it is inexcusable that there are teams that get to make money off of these other teams competing, basically. That's with the revenue sharing. And that's what's happening, right? That's why you have teams like the Twins who are like, we're going to completely destroy our payroll because we're just going to make an extra, let's say 90, 100 million on top of the hundreds of millions we're already getting in revenue sharing and from our own franchise, all this sort of stuff, right? So I think that that's part of the issue, is that people need to stop falling for the idea that the Dodgers are this evil empire. And they are. The Dodgers are evil in a lot of ways, right? Because they're benefiting from a broken system is how I would characterize it, right? But they are far from the main problem in Major League Baseball, which is the kindest thing that I could say about the Dodgers, because we hate them on this show, obviously. But I do think it is a huge, gross misunderstanding of the problem if you're just saying no one can compete with the Dodgers. And by the way, it's not about competing with the Dodgers in terms of overall salary. Yes, there are very few teams, probably just the Yankees, that are going to be able to shell out $1.5 billion. But historically speaking, that doesn't guarantee you championships. That guarantees you being fun, right? That guarantees you being a team that could always be a destination, for sure. And I do think that that is a huge problem in Major League Baseball, where there's so many fan bases that every offseason they're like, cool, I get to just not participate. The other sports, you get to participate. You get to be a Texans fan, being like, cool, we have a lot of salary cap this offseason. Let's go get a new lineman so CJ Stroud doesn't get killed. Or you're a Rams fan who's like, cool, yeah, we have a lot of money spent on Stafford and some of these other guys, and now we get to bring in Devontae Adams, right? Like, there's more possibility of shakeup in those sports. While baseball, it's just because the owner wants another yacht, right? And they want to invest in some other, companies and whatnot, whatever kind of evil companies are out there, frankly. That's just what they do, right? So don't get me wrong, I don't love the Dodgers, but it's a huge mistake to assume that you just, look at them. The Padres are just like a game out from the NL West title, right? Like they could beat them. But what you can't do is you can't win if you're not spending at all. And if you're just spending good amounts of money, if you're signing, 4-year, $40 million deals, if you're doing what Detroit did, where they bring in Gleyber Torres, they bring in a couple of extra reinforcements, they bring in Jack Flaherty, every team can do that. And you can win that way. You can win the World Series. The stat I always use on this podcast is that in the last 32 seasons, only 3 teams in the bottom half, not even top 10, not top 5, only if you're outside the top half, they do not make the World Series. They do not win the World Series. The only major exception, I believe the payroll ranking was like 17 and 18 for 2 of the teams that have won despite being outside the top half. And then there was another one, the Miami Marlins, who were like 24th when they won their World Series in the early 2000s. That was the true outlier. So if you take that into account, it's like, it basically is like a team like the Milwaukee Brewers, guys, historically speaking, with this trend, they aren't going anywhere in the playoffs, which is one of the reasons I talked about why I would rather be on their side of the bracket and face them potentially if that is the option, right? Not that they're a terrible team, but that's a team that doesn't spend, and historically speaking, you can't win that way. And you don't even have to spend too much, right? If the Brewers just went out and said, let's go get Gleyber Torres and let's go get one more starting pitcher like Jack Flaherty, let's say that boosts their payroll ranking to 14th in the league, right? Then, historically speaking, the trend says you have a chance to win the World Series. So we'll see. And the other thing about this is, if there's talk about a salary cap, guys, we had the story from Bryce Harper. Go check this out. Bryce Harper reportedly got in the face and was yelling at Rob Manfred because he brought up salary cap. If that is something that the owners are going to try and have happen, I promise you, you are getting a lockout next year. And it's going to be longer, much longer than the last one. And frankly, I think y'all were being a bunch of babies over the last one. You know why? Because it was like 3 weeks of spring training games that people missed. You know what I mean? I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, and I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about fans. Players, I totally understand. People who work maybe closer to Major League Baseball, concession stand workers, people part of teams, people who do media like myself, right? Like, that's different. And I was fine, by the way, don't worry. But I'm just saying that's different. But if you're just a fan who was complaining that there was no baseball, I was like, guys, it's spring training games. What are we doing? I think you may actually miss some actual games with this lockout. It does not sound like, it sounds like we're headed for a true war. And in my opinion, this is just me talking in my own personal opinion right now, I think the union didn't do a great job of negotiations for the last one. I think they caved in and just wanted the season to start. Everybody, all the fans were rejoicing, and all you fans that were rejoicing that they ended it probably prematurely in their negotiations, well, have fun when you potentially miss 2 months of the regular season, because this is what happens when you kick the can down the road. Right? So that's just my thoughts on the matter and on the CBA. And I agree with Anime Gamer 100%. It's about salary floor, not necessarily salary cap. Teams can spend more if they wanted to. I don't know fully how it will shake out, but it is a huge mistake to just say the Dodgers are an unstoppable force and they're evil and no team can compete. They can. The Detroit Tigers have more wins than the guys. The Milwaukee Brewers have more wins. You can still be competitive. Win the whole thing without spending? No. But be competitive and have a chance if you're up there in the top half? Absolutely. In any team. I refuse to believe that teams can't spend $140 million or whatever the number is that would keep them in the top half of that payroll conversation. So we'll see. But with that all being said, guys, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast. I hope you enjoyed the rants and the vibes. Remember to send in your questions in the comments section on YouTube. And I might open up the email again, too. The lockedonpadres@gmail.com. I might open that up again, too. We'll see. Not confirmed yet. We'll see. But until the next time, guys, stay tuned for tomorrow. We're going to answer some of your questions and recap to the last game of this Red series. Hopefully, Pivetta wins the pitcher's duel. But until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies, take care.